He's a 3-time league MVP, a finals MVP, and just completed one of the most dominant seasons in NBA history. He passes like Magic Johnson, but is 7 foot tall. He scores like a hybrid Tim Duncan and Hakeem Olajuwon. And oh yeah, he shoots the three better than every other GOAT center combined. Drafted in the second round, he's just messed around and got the highest player efficiency rating of all time. Nikola Jokic doesn't look like a basketball GOAT. He doesn't jump out of the gym. He doesn't scream after dunks. Man, he barely looks like he enjoys playing basketball. And yet, we may be witnessing the greatest center in NBA history right now in real time. And truthfully, nobody knows what to do with that. Because he's not Shaq physically, not Kareem historically, not Hakeem stylistically. But he's a crazy hybrid of all of them, like the basketball version of the Terminator. And even right now, his accolades stack up with the best to ever play. But to understand Nikola Jokic's place in NBA history, you need to see the full picture. Because he wasn't always great. And even when he was, they still doubted him. This is the story of a slow, soft-spoken Serbian who just might be the greatest center in NBA history. Nikola Jokic's NBA dreams came true when he was drafted 41st overall in 2014. And to celebrate his life-changing day, the NBA broadcast didn't even show it. Instead, it cut to a Taco Bell ad.
What?
No fanfare, no spotlight, zero expectations. He was chubby, unathletic, didn't play college ball, and barely spoke English. In his first year in Denver, Jokic wasn't even the plan. Remember there was a time where he was backing up Jusuf Nurkic and they thought Nurkic was way better? But slowly, those flashes came. Elite touch, court vision, and a feel for the game that made you wonder, what is this guy seeing that no one else does? By year 3 of his NBA career, Jokic was a near triple-double machine. By 2020, he had led the Nuggets to the conference finals for the first time in over a decade. Safe to say, he had already eclipsed any and all expectation. Then came the Western Conference Finals. Denver upset the Clippers coming back from 3-1. Jokic was ascending. But in the conference finals, Dwight Howard bullied him. Jokic got bodied in the paint, out-muscled, worn down. He looked passive, unfit, even uninterested. And that's when these narratives started. He's soft, empty stats, and the worst one, he's white European. The media wrote him off. And even as his numbers exploded the next year, the stigma still stuck. But as usual, Jokic didn't respond with talk or crying or wringing his hands. He responded with all-time production. From 2021 to 2025, he became the first center since Moses Malone to win 3 MVPs in 5 seasons. Oh, and by the way, he was the runner-up in the other 2. This guy didn't just score. He engineered offense. He became the first true point center, running Denver's offense like Steve Nash in a 7-footer's body. What's even crazier is his efficiency was off the charts. Over 60% true shooting, 25, 11, and 9 stat lines. Historic advanced metrics wherever you looked. PER, BPM, VORP, all GOAT level. He shot the 3 and adapted to the modern NBA better than every other all-time center combined. And looking at it from the perspective of, here's a 2nd round pick doing this. All these other big guys on this GOAT list were first picks. So that in a sense, that already makes him GOAT level. But still, not everyone was sold. Despite the MVPs, the playoff flameouts kept coming. He got swept by the Suns, lost to a short-handed Warriors team, failed to reach another conference finals. Critics pounce. Where are the rings? How come your team defense sucks? Why can't you defend? Are you just a regular season stat patter? Even fans started asking, is Jokic just analytics hype? Is Embiid better? Because until you win a title, unfortunately, you're not in the GOAT conversation. Or in any conversation, to be honest. Not for real anyway. But then everything changed. The 2023 playoffs happened and they were an absolute masterpiece. Jokic averaged 30 points per game, 13 rebounds a game, and 9.5 assists on 55, 46, and 80 shooting splits. Okay, pause for a sec. The dude shot 46% from three for an entire playoffs as a 7-foot big man. Oh, and by the way, he took out Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. He swept LeBron and Anthony Davis, then triple-doubled in the finals versus my Miami Heat and killed us. He made it look effortless. No yelling, no flexing, just domination. Finally got his ring and silenced every last critic. Jokic went from overrated stat guy to the most unguardable offensive force in basketball. Oh, and since that title run, all Jokic has done is win another regular season MVP and be runner-up in 2 more. Jokic is actually getting better and better, which is honestly jaw-dropping, but also downright scary and historically unprecedented. So with that in mind, where does Nikola Jokic rank all time? Let's stack him up with the giants of this game. And I think we can agree that any big man / center in this conversation has to have at least 1 MVP, 1 title, and 1 finals MVP, but was also the team's main offensive option every single night. Here are the 5 guys who are the greatest centers of all time. We have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who has 6 MVPs, 6 championships, and 2 finals MVPs. And if you look at what he was the most elite at, it would be his scoring with the skyhook and his defense. So Kareem is actually probably the only one you could say that at this point in their careers, he's ahead of Jokic. But here's where Kareem's legacy gets complicated. For 5 of those titles, he was not always the best player on his team. The Lakers drafted another top 5 NBA player of all time in Magic Johnson, who at times was the best player, but was always the unquestioned leader. And that's further emphasized by the fact that he won 6 titles, but only had 2 finals MVPs. 3 of those went to Magic. Shaq only has 1 regular season MVP. Yes, he has 4 titles and 3 finals MVP, which puts him up there for sure. But just like Kareem, Shaq also played with a top 5 NBA player of all time and wasn't always the best player on his own team. But then you add on to the fact that was never in shape for almost 70% of his regular seasons, could have won many more MVPs but didn't, and never developed the things which he was weak at, such as shooting. You'd have to say that while of course Shaq will always be a GOAT center, if you're just looking at stats and what your eyes are telling you, I think Jokic might be close to eclipsing him. Sorry, guys.
Aesthetics versus effectiveness. You comparing Shaq and Jokic, Jokic has him in spades.
If we look at the next guy, Hakeem, who also has 1 regular season MVP, 2 championships, and 2 finals MVP. He had elite all-time defense, and his scoring was honestly the most unguardable on this list. You think of Hakeem, he was picked first in Jordan's draft, and no one says anything. That's how good Hakeem Olajuwon was. But if you break down skill by skill, passing, scoring, defense, and 3-point shooting, you'd have to say Nikola Jokic is at least on par. And then the last guy on this list who makes the cut is Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, who had 4 regular season MVPs, 2 championships, and 1 finals MVP. And of course, he's the greatest scorer known to man with his statistics. No one will ever beat that. Wilt Chamberlain, when it came time for winning, he was actually bested a lot by Bill Russell. And so it really does harm his legacy because Wilt had the greatest stats in the regular season, but when things changed up in the playoffs, the drop-off was too much. And if you think about a guy who averaged 50 points a game, how do you have only 1 finals MVP? And before you guys fillet me, let's talk about the Bill Russell-sized elephant in the room. While Bill Russell is one of the greatest leaders in NBA history, one of the greatest winners in NBA history, one of the greatest overall ambassadors for the game, it would be a little bit unfair to put him on the same list as guys who were the main offensive option because Bill Russell was nowhere near the main offensive option on his team. He was the overall leader and defense and rebounding is where he made his name. Bill Russell has a career average of 15 points per game, while the rest of the players on this list were the main offensive option every single night. And so the last guy on this list, based on these accomplishments, is Nikola Jokic, who has 3 regular season MVPs, a championship, a finals MVP, but he's the greatest passing big man ever. Everyone agrees with that. He scores like a combination of Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Kareem. You see him do that hook. I know Tim Duncan's a power forward, but still, his defense is improving. And then the final nail in the coffin is this. If you look at three-point shooting, Nikola Jokic is the best shooting center of all time. Combined, not one of these other guys on this list even attempted to shoot threes or attempted to shoot things that were outside of 10 feet, outside of Hakeem from time to time. In totality, the most efficient, high-usage scorer at center. He's one of the most well-conditioned and durable athletes in the league. And oh yeah, he's the all-time leader in player efficiency rating. Forget big men. This dude has a higher PER than MJ and LeBron James. And player efficiency rating is widely regarded as the most complete stat in analyzing a player's importance. I'm sorry to say it, even if you hate Nikola Jokic for some weird reason, like you're Joel Embiid's biggest fan, these achievements alone put him in the top 5, and realistically, these numbers already put him in the top 3. But truthfully, the eye test might say more by the time it's all said and done. There isn't a perfect player, not even Nikola Jokic. He's still not a rim protector. He's still not a defensive anchor. And he'll never overpower and dominate physically like Shaq or Wilt. He cares more about horses than highlights and doesn't trash talk ever. But actually, that's what makes him dangerous. He's the GOAT big in disguise. So could Nikola Jokic be the greatest center ever? Not only could he be the greatest center of all time in the future, he might already be today. If he wins one more ring, it's over.